Welcome to TB Dahl Audiobooks.
Chapter 5. The Safe Flat. The Campen apartment settled around them like a held breath. Riley sat at the kitchen table with the overhead light off, working by the pale glow from a desk lamp she'd angled toward the wall so it wouldn't throw shadows across the blinds. Elliot had moved through the flat twice since their conversation, checking each window latch, testing the back door that opened onto a shared courtyard, mapping the building's internal stairwell against what he could see of the structure from the windows. She heard him come back from the hallway. The front door closed. A lock turned. "Stairwell's clear. 4 floors, 1 exit to the street, 1 to a basement that connects to the courtyard. The courtyard gate opens onto Kjolbergata. Padlock, but old. Bolt cutters would take 3 seconds. Riley looked up from her notebook. "You found bolt cutters?" "Under the kitchen sink. Tara's cousin either does a lot of home repair or lives in an interesting neighborhood." She almost smiled. Almost. Elliot sat on the arm of the sofa across from her. He'd taken off his jacket and rolled his sleeves to the forearm. His hands were still dirty from the construction site, concrete dust ground into the creases of his knuckles. He hadn't washed them. She wondered if he'd noticed. "We should establish a check-in protocol with Tara," he said. "Something simple. She texts a specific word at a set time. If she misses, we assume something's wrong." "She's already texting me every hour." "From her regular phone?" Riley hesitated. "Yes." "That needs to stop. If they've connected her to you, and they saw her face at the museum, her phone becomes a vector, not just for tracking her, for tracking us through her." He was right. She knew he was right, but the thought of telling Tara to go dark, to change her patterns, to treat her own phone as a liability, that was the moment the threat stopped being abstract and started touching the people around her. "I'll talk to her," Riley said. "I have the prepaid she gave me. I'll call from that, tell her to pick up a burner at a kiosk tomorrow. We set a schedule, twice a day, specific times. If either of us misses, the other assumes compromise." Elliot nodded. He looked at the desk where the silver cross sat beside Riley's closed notebook. The cross hadn't moved since she'd set it down, but it had changed the room somehow. A 68-year-old man had kept that cross hidden inside a false-bottomed archive box, and now it sat on a particle-board desk in a borrowed apartment in Campen, and neither of them knew what it meant, beyond the initials carved into the back. A.M. 1918. "We should sleep in shifts," Elliot said. "I'll take first watch. 3 hours. "You don't have to. It's not a question of have to. We don't know this building. We don't know the neighborhood well enough. And we don't know if the people who followed you to the Munch and followed me to Bjorvika have already narrowed their search radius to Campen." The logic was clean. She didn't argue. Riley moved to the narrow bedroom. The sheets smelled like lavender detergent and the faint chemical sweetness of an apartment that had been closed for weeks. She lay on top of the covers in her clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater she'd worn to the museum, and stared at the ceiling. Her mind wouldn't stop cataloging. Henrik Rask, retired archivist, museum consultant, dead in a basement with a note and a handwritten reference to Brasovo. His apartment searched. The custodian index removed. A filing system with our names built into it. R-17, E-17, File 17, The Northern Table. A silver cross dated 1918. She turned on her side. The streetlight outside made geometric patterns through the blind slats. Orange parallelograms on the wall, shifting when the wind moved the branches of something outside. We were part of this before we knew it existed, before we knew each other existed, That thought was the one she kept circling. Not the dead man, not the surveillance, not the cross or the codes or the Brasovo reference. It was the fact that somewhere in this city, in this country, someone had known she had a brother and had decided she shouldn't. She pressed her face into the pillow and breathed until the anger had a lid on it. Sleep came in fragments, thin, unreliable. Elliot sat in the dark living room with the desk lamp off. His eyes had adjusted. The streetlight gave enough ambient light to see shapes: the sofa, the bookshelves, the kitchen door frame. The window blinds were closed, but not blackout. He could see the faintest movement of shadows when someone walked past on the street below. He counted 5 people in the first hour: 2 couples and a single man with a dog. Normal foot traffic for a residential street at 11 on a weeknight. The dog stopped to sniff a lamppost, and the man waited with the kind of formless patience that belonged to someone who did this every night. Not surveillance. Elliot's phone was off. It sat on the kitchen counter like a dead thing. He'd powered it on twice since arriving, once to read Riley's address text, once to check for the unknown number that had sent him E-safe after the police station. Nothing new had arrived. He'd turned it off again within 90 seconds each time. He thought about the construction site. 2 men searching for him through a space he knew better than his own apartment. The way they'd moved. One holding the gate line, the other pushing into the site with purpose but poor spatial awareness. Not police. Police would have identified themselves. Not PST. Norwegian domestic intelligence wouldn't run an overt foot pursuit through a private construction site without coordination. Private contractors, maybe. Or something else. The ductwork collapse had bought him time. He'd felt the stack's instability the moment he'd leaned against the pallet support. A controlled push, angled to maximize noise and debris spread without endangering the workers below. The calculation had taken about 2 seconds. The geometry was simple. Loose stacking, high center of gravity, wet ground beneath the pallet runners, reducing friction. He hadn't thought about it in military terms at the time. He'd thought about it the way he thought about anything on a construction site. Load, angle, consequence. Now, sitting in the dark, he thought about it differently. He'd used his environment as a weapon. Not against people, no one was hurt, but as a tool of evasion. And it had felt natural. That bothered him more than the men who'd been following him. At 1 a.m, he woke Riley. She came out of sleep fast, already upright before her eyes were fully open. "Anything?" she asked. "Quiet, normal street traffic, nothing flagged." She took his place in the living room. He took the bedroom. The pillow still held the indent from her head. He lay down and was asleep in 4 minutes. The prepaid phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. Riley was sitting in the chair by the window, her notebook open on her lap, when the screen lit up on the kitchen counter. The phone was Tara's, one of 2 prepaid devices Tara had given her when they'd parted outside the Munch Museum. Riley had kept it off except for their hourly check-ins, the last of which had been at midnight. This wasn't Tara's number. Riley stood, crossed the room, picked up the phone without touching the screen to answer. The message was a text from an unknown number, 9 digits, Norwegian format. She read it once, read it again. Then she went to the bedroom door and knocked. Elliot opened it within seconds. He'd been sleeping in his clothes, and his eyes were sharp before his posture fully caught up. He saw the phone in her hand. "Unknown number," Riley said. "Just now." She held the screen toward him. He read it standing in the doorframe. R17 and E17 are not safe at this location. Henrik Rask was killed because File 17 was breached.
The people who removed the custodian index know your names. If you want to understand why, come to Parkveien 31, 3rd floor, flat 3B. Come before dawn. Come separately. Do not bring the phone you are reading this on. Elliot's jaw tightened. He read it a second time, a third. How did they get this number? Tara bought it at a Narvesen kiosk yesterday. She paid cash. It's not registered to either of us. But someone has it. Yes. Which means either the number was intercepted digitally, or someone saw Tara buy it and recorded the SIM data, or Tara told someone. Tara didn't tell anyone. He didn't push it. He looked at the phone again. They reference R17 and E17, the envelope markings. They mention the custodian index being removed from Rask's apartment. That's not public knowledge. The police don't even know about the index. We didn't report it. Which means whoever sent this either took the index themselves or knows who did. Or they were in Rask's apartment before us and saw what was there. Riley set the phone on the kitchen counter. Parkveien 31. That's Frogner, near the palace. Near the embassy belt. They looked at each other. The apartment was quiet. The street outside was empty. No movement behind the blinds, no sound beyond the distant hum of a city that never fully slept. This could be the same people who followed us, Elliot said. It could be. Or it could be whatever Henrik Rask was part of. Those might be the same thing. They might not.
He crossed his arms, leaned against the doorframe. Walk me through it. Riley pulled out a chair and sat. She didn't need the notebook for this. The pattern was already assembled in her head, each piece weighted and arranged. Rask summoned us to the museum. He was killed before we arrived. Someone knew about the meeting. The note on his body said they know about the meeting. So the meeting was compromised. But whoever compromised it didn't stop us from arriving. They let us walk into a crime scene. Which means we were meant to find the body. Or meant to be seen there. Either way, we became part of the evidence chain. Then the follow-up envelopes appeared at our homes. They're watching you for me. File 17 is open for you. Those weren't from the people who killed Rask. The messaging is different. The envelopes are the same format as the originals. Same paper, same ink, same delivery method. 2 different groups. At least 2. One killed Rask. The other is still trying to communicate with us using the same channels Rask used. She tapped the prepaid phone. This message references R17, E17, the custodian index. If they wanted to lure us into a trap, they wouldn't need to prove their knowledge this precisely. They'd just give an address and a threat. Unless proving their knowledge is the trap. Show us enough to make us believe they're credible, then control the location. Possible, but they're telling us to come separately. If you're setting a trap, you want both targets arriving together. Single point of entry, single moment of control. Telling us to arrive separately means they expect us to take different routes, different timings. That's harder to ambush. Elliot studied her. She could see him running the tactical geometry in parallel. Approach routes, sight lines, building type, exit options, time of night, neighborhood density. Parkveien's a good street for a safe flat, he said. Embassy zone means police presence, regular patrols. Hard to run an obvious operation without attracting attention. The building stock is older, stone, heavy doors, internal courtyards. If there's a 3rd-floor apartment, there's likely a rear stairwell. You're arguing for going. I'm assessing the location. I'm not arguing for anything yet. Riley stood. She went to the window and parted 2 slats of the blind with her fingers. The street was empty.
Wet pavement reflected the amber streetlights. A cat moved along the base of the building opposite and disappeared behind a wheelie bin. "They know where we are," she said. "This address, this apartment, Tara's cousin's flat. They've told us explicitly that we're not safe here. If that's true, staying is worse than moving. If it's a lie designed to flush us out, then we're already flushed. They have this phone number, which means they have proximity to our communications. Staying doesn't protect us from people who already know our location." She let the blind slats close. "I want to go, but not blind and not stupid. We leave separately. We take indirect routes. We identify the building before we enter. If anything looks wrong, vehicles, static observers, unusual lighting, anything, we walk past and don't stop." Elliot was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he picked up his jacket from the sofa arm. "I go first," he said. 20 minutes before you. I approach from Homensbyen, loop around the back of the building, and check the courtyard entrance. If I don't text you a confirmation word from the second prepaid within 15 minutes of arriving, you don't come." "What's the word?" He thought about it. "Concrete." That's the most Elliot word I've ever heard. It's the last word anyone would use in a threatening message. Elliot left first. The stairwell was dark and smelled of pine cleaner. He descended to the ground floor without using his phone light, counting steps, letting his hand trace the banister. The main entrance opened onto the street. He paused behind the glass door, scanned both directions. Empty. He turned left and walked at a normal pace toward Tøyen, away from the direct route to Frogner. The rain had stopped. The air was cold and sharp, carrying the mineral smell of wet stone and the faintest edge of the fjord. Oslo, at 3 in the morning, was a different city. The trams had stopped running. The bars were closed. The streets belonged to foxes, delivery trucks, and the occasional taxi tracing its way toward Aker Brygge.
He walked through Tøyen, cut south along Grunlandsleiret to avoid the open stretch of Grünerløkka, then turned west through Sentrum. He kept his pace even, changed sidewalks twice, stopped once in a doorway for 40 seconds, watching the street behind him through the reflection in a shop window. Nobody. No movement that matched his direction or speed. At Parkveien, he slowed. The street ran along the western edge of the Royal Palace Gardens, lined with older apartment buildings, 4 and 5 stories, stone facades, arched doorways, iron balconies. Embassy territory. He could see the faint glow of security lighting from 2 diplomatic compounds further up the street. Number 31 was a corner building with a courtyard entrance visible through a wrought iron gate. The gate was ajar. Elliot didn't enter. He walked past, turned the corner, and continued for a block and a half. Then he doubled back through a parallel street and approached the rear of the building from Josefina's gate. The rear access was a service door beside a row of bicycle storage units. The lock was a modern keypad. Elliot didn't touch it. He checked the windows above, dark except for a faint warm light on the 3rd floor. Not electric. Candle or low lamp diffused through curtains. He went around to the front. The courtyard gate was still ajar. He entered. The courtyard was small, paved, with a single tree and 2 rubbish enclosures. A rear stairwell door stood unlocked. He climbed to the 3rd floor. Flat 3B was at the end of the corridor. Heavy wooden door, brass handle, no nameplate. He listened. Silence. Then, from inside, the quiet sound of a kettle beginning to heat. He knocked. 3 times, spaced evenly. A pause. Then footsteps, deliberate, unhurried. and the door opened. The woman who stood in the doorway was in her late 60s or early 70s. Tall, thin, silver-white hair pulled back into a tight arrangement at the base of her skull. She wore dark wool trousers, a high-collared gray blouse, and no jewelry. Her face was angular and composed, with deep-set eyes the color of slate. She looked at Elliot the way a surgeon looks at an imaging scan, assessing structure, not personality. "Mr. Harper," she said, not a question. "Who are you?" "My name is Katerina Volkova. Please come in. I've made tea." He didn't move. "I need to check the apartment first." She stepped aside without protest. "Of course. The layout is simple. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, and the room where we are standing. The windows face the courtyard and the rear garden. The rear stairwell is unlocked. I left it that way for you." Elliot entered. He moved through the flat in under 2 minutes. He checked every room, every window latch, every closet. He opened the rear stairwell door and verified the route. 3 flights down to a service exit that opened onto the bicycle storage area he'd already identified. He checked the bathroom for concealed entries. He looked behind the bedroom doors. What he found confirmed something Riley had said about Rask's world. This was not a normal apartment. The bedroom closest to the front door contained 2 packed bags, military-style duffels, dark canvas, zippered and ready. He opened one. Clothing, cash, Norwegian kroner and euros, banded. 3 prepaid phones in sealed plastic. A first aid kit, a folding knife, paper maps of Oslo, Bergen, and the Finnish border region. In the second bag, more cash, a change of clothes sized for a woman, toiletries, a sealed envelope marked with a number he didn't recognize, and an older Nokia phone with its battery removed. The second bedroom was arranged as a study. A desk, a reading lamp, 2 filing boxes. The boxes were sealed with tape that showed no signs of tampering. A bookshelf held volumes in Russian, Norwegian, and English, history, cartography, genealogy, church records. He returned to the main room. Katerina Volkova sat in a straight-backed chair near the window, her posture precise, a cup of tea resting on a saucer in her lap. She hadn't moved to watch him search. She'd waited. That was interesting. Someone who was nervous about a stranger going through their safe house would have followed him. She sat still. Either she trusted the contents, or she'd already removed anything she didn't want him to find. "You found the bags," she said. "Yes. They are for you and Ms. Hunt, if needed." "If needed for what?" "That depends on what happens next." Elliot remained standing. He positioned himself between the main door and the hallway to the rear stairwell. 2 exits within 5 seconds of each other. He texted Riley from the second prepaid. Concrete. Riley arrived 22 minutes later. She'd taken the long route, south through Grønland, west along the waterfront, then north through Akerbrugge and Skillebekk, before cutting inland through the residential blocks toward Frogner. She'd stopped 3 times to check for followers. Each time, the streets behind her were empty. At 3:40 in the morning, Oslo's geometry was clean enough to read. She found the building, entered through the courtyard gate, climbed the rear stairwell. The door to 3B was unlocked. Inside, the apartment smelled of black tea and old wood. Elliot stood near the hallway entrance with his back to the wall. He gave her a small nod, clear, and shifted his weight, but didn't sit. The woman in the chair turned her head, Riley's first impression was of control. Not the professional control Riley practiced in client meetings, the measured cadence, the arranged face. This was older, deeper, structural. Katerina Volkova held herself the way load-bearing walls hold a building. Without visible effort, carrying weight that wasn't obvious until you understood what would collapse without it. Ms. Hunt, thank you for coming. I haven't decided yet if coming was the right choice. Katerina's mouth moved fractionally. Not quite a smile. That is a sensible position. Please sit. Riley didn't. She took a circuit of the room first. Not as thorough as Elliot's, but enough to register the dimensions, the windows, the exits. The tea service on the side table. The absence of personal photographs. The books in 3 languages. Then she sat. Across from Katerina, with the low table between them, she kept her jacket on. You sent the message to our phone, Riley said. I did. You referenced R17 and E17, the markings inside our envelopes. You mentioned Henrik Rask by name and the custodian index that was removed from his apartment. I did. The custodian index wasn't reported to police. We didn't tell anyone it existed. The only way you know about it is if you were involved in its creation, its removal, or you have a source inside the apartment who saw what was there before we did. Katerina set her teacup on the saucer. The porcelain barely clicked. I was involved in its creation. I was not involved in its removal. And I have no source inside Henrik's apartment. I know it was taken because I know who would have taken it. And I know that his apartment was entered before his body was discovered. Who took it? I will explain. But I would like to explain in order. Some things require context. Context is what people offer when they want to control what you hear first. Something shifted in Katerina's expression. The faintest flicker. Not offense, not surprise. Recognition. As if Riley had confirmed something she'd already suspected. You are very like your mother, Katerina said quietly. The room went still. Riley felt the sentence land in her sternum like a physical blow. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She held Katerina's gaze and forced her voice level. My mother is a retired teacher in Bærum. She doesn't know anyone named Katerina Volkova. Your adoptive mother, yes. I imagine she is a good woman. I am not speaking about her. The silence that followed was the loudest sound in the room. Elliot straightened against the wall. Riley could feel his attention sharpen without looking at him. You have 5 minutes, Riley said, to explain who you are and why we should believe a word you say. After that, we leave, and you can send messages to an empty room. Katerina folded her hands in her lap. Long fingers, no rings, nails trimmed short and unpolished. The hands of someone who worked with precision and had done so for decades. My name is Katerina Volkova. I am 71 years old. I was born in Oslo to a Norwegian mother and a Russian father. My father's family came to Norway in the 1920s, part of the emigration that followed the Russian Revolution and Civil War. I have lived in Oslo most of my life. I speak 4 languages. I have worked in archives, translation, and legal documentation. For the past 43 years, I have been a member of an organization called Honest Russia. She paused. Let the name settle.
Honest Russia, Riley repeated. HR. Yes. The initials on our letters. Yes. Henrik Rosk's initials.
A coincidence that Henrik appreciated. His parents named him without knowing the organization existed. When he joined, the overlap became useful. HR could mean the organization or the man. That ambiguity was deliberate in later communications. Elliot spoke for the first time since Riley arrived. What is honest Russia? Katerina looked at him. Her gaze carried the same assessing quality she'd directed at Riley, but with something else. She studied his face as if checking it against a memory she wasn't ready to share. Honest Russia was founded in 1919 in Helsinki, she said. A small group of Russian exiles, officers, archivists, clergy, household staff, minor aristocrats, gathered after the revolution to preserve what they believed the new Soviet state would destroy. They were not trying to raise an army. They were trying to save evidence. Documents, letters, church records, baptismal registers, witness accounts, photographs, objects that proved things the state wanted erased. She spoke without notes, without hesitation. The cadence was practiced, not rehearsed, but refined by years of telling the same history in controlled circumstances to people who needed to understand it quickly. The name they chose was deliberate. Not Imperial Russia, not Royalist Russia, Honest Russia. Because their founding principle was simple. No future Russia could be rebuilt on lies. The revolution did not only destroy a dynasty, it destroyed records. It manufactured false histories. It erased names, families, bloodlines, events. The people who founded Honest Russia believed that preserving the truth was more important than restoring a crown. That's a nice founding myth, Riley said. What does it do now? Now it is fractured. Katerina's voice dropped a register. Like most organizations that survive a century, it has divided. The original purpose remains, but the people who carry it interpret it differently. Differently how? There are factions. The largest and oldest is the keepers. They believe their duty is to protect, to guard documents, to preserve identities, to keep certain truths hidden until the world is ready for them, or until the people most affected by those truths are safe enough to receive them. You're a keeper, Elliot said. I am. Henrik Rask was a keeper. He was, for more than 35 years. And the keepers got him killed. Katerina's composure held, but something moved behind her eyes. A contraction, like a hand closing around something fragile. Henrik was killed because he made a decision the rest of us were too cautious to make. He believed that the two people protected by File 17 were in immediate danger, and that continuing to hide the truth from them was no longer protection. It was a death sentence delivered slowly. Riley leaned forward. The two people protected by File 17. Yes. Say it plainly. You, Ms. Hunt, and you, Mr. Harper. R-17 and E-17. The marks inside your envelopes are not filing codes. They are identity designations within File 17. R for Riley, E for Elliot. 17 for the file that has contained your records since you were infants. The room was very still. The candle on the side table, Riley could see it now, a short pillar candle in a glass holder, flickered once as a draft moved through the old window frames. The light made Katerina's shadow shift against the wall behind her. For a moment, There were 3 shadows in the room, and then 2, and then 3 again. What records? Riley's voice was precise, surgical. Birth records, adoption documents, medical records, surveillance logs, photographs, assessment reports, identity papers, both your original names and the names you carry now. Our original names. Your birth names were not Riley Hunt and Elliot Harper. Elliot pushed off the wall. He didn't step forward, but the movement changed the room's geometry. His weight shifted to the balls of his feet. Riley recognized the stance from the museum basement, ready to move in any direction. Who assigned those names? He asked. Honest Russia coordinated the placement. The families who raised you were chosen carefully. Good people, stable, loving, completely unaware of the truth. The truth about what? Riley's hands were flat on her knees, pressing down, anchoring. About who you are, about where you come from, about why you were separated. Separated. The word left Riley's mouth like something sharp. You're saying you and Mr. Harper are siblings, Katerina said. You were born within minutes of each other. You were placed with different families as infants. You have lived your entire lives less than 8 kilometers apart, and you were never told.
Riley stood. The chair scraped backward against the wooden floor. She walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the cold glass. Her reflection stared back at her, pale, jaw tight, eyes that held something between fury and vertigo.
Riley, Elliot started. I know. Her voice was flat, controlled, but her breath had fogged the glass, and she could see it pulsing, in, out, faster than she wanted. I already knew. Since the basement, since the envelopes matched, since the filing system made us parallel entries. I knew. I just hadn't heard anyone say it. She turned back to face the room. Her eyes went to Elliot first. She looked at him the way she would look at a document she'd read dozens of times and was seeing for the first time, searching for the details she'd missed because she hadn't known what they meant. His eyes, blue-gray, the same shade her adoptive mother once described as unusual when looking at a baby photograph. His jaw, the angle of it, the way it set when he was thinking. His hands, long-fingered, like hers. She looked away. Why? She asked Katerina. Why separate us? Because a single child can disappear. 2 children together are a pattern. 2 children with the same face, the same eyes, the same birth date. That is a signature. The people who wanted you hidden believed that keeping you together would make you easier to find. Find by whom? By the Russian state. By intelligence services that had spent decades monitoring émigré organizations and hunting for exactly the kind of evidence File 17 contains. And what evidence is that? What makes 2 Norwegian children worth hunting? Katerina's hands remained folded. Her posture hadn't shifted. But Riley saw the older woman's throat move. A swallow, involuntary, the kind of physiological tell that even decades of discipline couldn't fully suppress. Katerina looked at her teacup. The tea had gone cold. She didn't drink it. Yes, she said. He was right. And it killed him. The candle guttered. A draft from the old window seals. The flame recovered, but the shadows rearranged themselves across the walls, longer, sharper, as if the room had expanded by a fraction. Riley sat back down. She didn't lean back in the chair. She perched on its edge, her weight forward, her hands gripping the armrests. You said some want to protect us, some want to expose us, some want to erase us. Those were almost exactly the words in your text message. I want specifics, not faction names, names of people. Who in honest Russia knew about us before Henrik Rask died? Who authorized the envelopes? Who made the decision to separate us as children? Who chose our families? Katerina met her stare. I will not give you those names tonight. Why not? Because the custodian index is gone. That list contained the names of every person connected to File 17. Custodians, handlers, archivists, protectors. Whoever removed it from Henrik's apartment now has a directory of the people who kept you alive. If I give you names and you are captured, followed, or compromised, those people die. And if you don't give us names, we're operating blind against an unknown number of threats from an unknown number of directions, with an organization we didn't know existed telling us to trust them based on, Riley gestured at the room, tea and emergency bags. Based on the fact that you are alive, Katerina said. Her voice didn't rise, but it hardened. Iron under silk. You are alive because honest Russia kept you alive. You are alive because Henrik Rask spent 30 years maintaining documents that proved your identities, while ensuring those identities were never exposed. You are alive because people you will never meet made decisions that cost them their safety, their careers, and in some cases their lives. I understand your anger. I share your frustration. But I will not hand you a weapon that can be turned against the people who protected you. The silence after that was vast. Riley's breathing was audible. Elliot's was not. You said Henrik was one of the keepers responsible for preserving File 17, Elliot said. His tone was level, factual. The voice he used on construction sites when a problem needed solving and emotion would slow the process. If the custodian index is gone, and Henrik is dead, how much of File 17 is still intact? Katerina's hands shifted in her lap, the first sign of uncertainty. File 17 was never kept in one place. That was deliberate. The founding principle of custodianship. Documents were distributed across multiple holders, multiple locations, multiple countries. Henrik held the index and certain original records. Other custodians hold other pieces. But without the index, reconstructing the complete file becomes exponentially more difficult. So whoever has the index has a map to every piece of the puzzle. Yes.
The story continues in the next chapter, so make sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with fellow book lovers.